Good evening. The Community Relations Commission of Baltimore City Agency hearing on November 1st, 2022 is called to order. We welcome all of you who are present in the room, online, and maybe via telecommunications for this important first conversation of our efforts to move past
Good evening.
what has actually held us.
I want to do a mic check to see if anyone can hear me. Okay.
We can hear you.
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I think that's the mic check.
I was worried before I didn't hear anything. So.
All right. I think we've got some internal conversation, but we will keep going. The purpose of this evening's hearing is to have an important conversation about the state of things in Baltimore City post probably one of the most traumatic times in anyone's memory. The COVID-19 pandemic has altered the way we go about our daily affairs, and it's important that as we are now recovering, that we have an important conversation about how city government works on behalf of its constituents. The Community Relations Commission's authority is under Article 4 of the City Code,
say that again?
which actually
hear the
provides
meeting at all.
for the holding
I don't hear
of
anything.
investigations and public hearings for the purpose of determining
Guessing maybe they haven't
the
started
existence
it. Yeah,
of
but I'm on
problems,
audio because I'm actually in
practices,
commute,
or
and I don't have the WebEx on my phone, so I'm not sure.
So the commissions that are on,
Okay, I have the WebEx and I see they're talking. There's somebody signing now, but I can't.
That's the Tom TV feedback.
who's
I'm at City Hall,
got
so
the
I'm
control
down and let them know.
and the volume?
is that Nate?
Are you muting everyone over there? So, all right. So, as we have all learned over the last 2.5+ years, being flexible is the art of surviving post-COVID. So we will navigate through it as best we can. So everybody just relax. We will certainly handle this conversation as efficiently as we can. Section 2-4, subparagraph 10 of Article 4 authorizes the Community Relations Commission to conduct investigations and studies and hold public hearings for the purpose of determining the existence of problems, practices, or conditions in the areas placed under its jurisdiction by this or any other ordinance or by state or federal law. It is with that in mind that we convene tonight what is the first of a number of conversations, and let me begin by thanking Chief Ford and the leadership of the Baltimore City Fire Department for their willingness to come before us tonight as we have a discussion about fire and emergency medical services in Baltimore City. I will reserve my official opening statements as chair, but I want to give you an idea of the flow for tonight now that we've addressed the purpose and the authority for this hearing. As we get to the section of opening statements, my colleagues on the Community Relations Commission will be introduced. Some of us are here in the room, others are joining online. After which I will introduce Chief Ford, and he will introduce his team for their opening statements and remarks, and then there will be a time of public comment. Let me change that because I think we're slightly out of order. Before my colleagues give their opening statements, we will have public comment. Then I will introduce the commissioners for their opening statements. Chief Ford will be recognized for his opening statement. Then there'll be a time of Q&A. Then we will have closing statements and then further instructions as it pertains to the record for tonight. Before I recognize Director Dana Moore for her opening thoughts, I think it's important for us to remember that the provision and the providing for of emergency medical services and fire services in Baltimore City carries with it a great deal of consistent risk. The lives of a dedicated corps of professionals are often put on the line for us on a daily basis. Most of the time, we are often unwitting and unaware. There has been a great deal of loss within the ranks of the Baltimore City Fire Department in 2022, most recently with the passing of firefighter and EMT Juan Wilson. The names are numerous. Chief Ford will have an opportunity to speak to those who have given their ultimate sacrifice on behalf of the people of Baltimore City. But I think it's important that as we begin our conversation tonight, that we pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of firefighter Wilson and all of those who have given their lives in service to the city of Baltimore. Thank you very much. At this time, I want to acknowledge Director Dana Moore, the Director of the Office of Equity and Civil Rights for the City of Baltimore, for any reflection she might have, and then we will move forward with the rest of the agenda. Director Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Yeary. One, I just want to welcome everyone that is here in the room, everyone that's watching virtually, and also just to thank the fire department for all of the work that we've done together to make this hearing happen. It's an important hearing. It's one that we know that we're required to have, and I'm just very, very thankful to Chief Ford and his team for bringing us to this moment. The fire department is extremely important to Baltimore. You all carried us, along with Dr. Jaraza, through the worst pandemic ever. We've managed to navigate it so well, in large measure, because of the commitment of the fire department and the leadership of Chief Ford and his team. We're very thankful for you. We're very grateful for you. The Office of Equity and Civil Rights is very proud of its Community Relations Commission and all of the work that you've done over the years. The Community Relations Commission is the longest serving commission that we have within our office, and we're very pleased that Chair Yeary has agreed to stand for election and be reelected as chair, and we just look forward to additional hearings like this and further collaboration with the Community Relations Commission. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Moore. We now move to a period of public comment. I do not have a sign-in sheet for any members of the public who would like to offer comment or those that might be online. However, we will pause, and if there is any public comment, we ask that the comments be limited to 2 minutes. I will keep time. And then once we've had a period of public comment, we will move to the opening remarks of the members of the Community Relations Commission. Hearing none, is there any further public comment? All right. Hearing none at this time, we will make sure that the record will be held open for a period of time at the end of the hearing, so that if there is any public comment that would be submitted, we will give instructions on how to do that prior to the adjournment. We now move to the opening remarks of members of the Community Relations Commission. There are 4 of us on the dais tonight, and others are online. I will recognize those who are present. I believe there are 2 who are on the phone, and they will have 2 minutes each to offer their opening statements. I will yield until after my colleagues have offered their opening statements, and then I will introduce Chief Ford. We will begin with the Secretary of the Community Relations Commission, Commissioner Nadine Finnegan-Carr.
Thank you, Chair Yeary. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Nadine Finnegan-Carr. I am an associate professor at the University of Maryland, Baltimore Schools of Social Work and Medicine. And I have served as a commissioner here since 2018. So I am no longer a newbie. There are a couple of new ones that are here with me. And I am very happy to be with you. All of the agencies of Baltimore City are near and dear to my heart, but specifically no more, I believe, a little bit more than every other is the fire department. Specifically because the Baltimore City Fire Department are the first of the first responders when something happens in the community, especially related to public health, social work, and medicine, which are the areas of my personal expertise. When you are sick and you call for an ambulance, you are calling the Baltimore City Fire Department. When your house is on fire, of course, you are calling the Baltimore City Fire Department. When anything happens, you really are calling the Baltimore City Fire Department more than any other agency in Baltimore City. And the work that they have done over the years to improve their services is to be commended. But we all know that we all have to improve on a day-to-day basis. So I'm looking forward today to hearing from the chief as to what the current progress is for the Baltimore City Fire Department and what their next steps are to ensure that the people of Baltimore City remain safe, especially with regards to their public health, medical, and social work needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ronaldo Evangelista.
Welcome, Chief Ford. I am Dr. Ronaldo Evangelista. First, I want to thank you for your leadership. As a fire chief, you are responsible for carrying out the day-to-day task of leading a vital public service. These vital responsibilities include supervising other officers, paramedics, firefighters at emergency scenes, as well as recruiting, training, and equipping them for their duties. As a former first responder, I understand the difficulties, challenges, as well as successes of leading a full-service fire department in the 21st century. I am grateful for your phenomenal service and support for our citizens of Baltimore City.
Thank you. Commissioner Foster.
Thank you, Chair Yuri. Good evening, everyone. To Chief Ford and the Baltimore City Fire Department staff, all those who have taken their time to be here. Just want to thank you. I have a unique perspective as I have served as a firefighter for the past 13 years. Chief Ford, I look forward to an open and frank discussion, and I hope that we don't just address issues and problems, but we also come up with solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Foster. I believe on the phone, Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Eleche. Give it just a minute to identify who's who. Checking email. So Commissioner Johnson is on the line, audio only. There's a way
Needs
to
to be elevated.
identify his line.
He's on the WebEx, but the sound is not working on the WebEx, so he can't hear you.
He cannot hear me.
Yeah, no one on the WebEx can hear.
I thought you were going to tell them to
I told everyone that he joined us. There's two commissioners on the WebEx.
Okay.
All right. We're doing pretty good on process, so please allow us a few moments to try to work out the technical glitches. Can you have Dr. Leche's number? So there's no have her call you on your cell speaker. Yeah, just a second. Yeah, that's the phone. Okay. He has your number. Text him and tell him. Okay. All right.
Check. They should hear us now. Kim, can you hear us now? Check.
We may have a resolution.
See this input level? This is discussion now. You hear us now? Can you hear it now? I have sound going in and it's catching it. But can y'all hear us? Okay. Can you hear us now?
No.
Check.
I just have him call in. All right, so what we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to ask the commissioners to call one of our colleagues, and then we will call one of our colleagues. Okay, well, that's me.
No, that's different.
That's different?
Because what we sound being
All right.
Say what?
You can't, so that's why I just said to.
See, look, we have audio coming through. You see that?
Okay. All right, can you, Doctor, did anyone?
Just put it on speaker.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna put you on speaker now to introduce yourself. Okay? Dr. Leche.
Good evening.
All right, so we're going to kind of do a workaround. Dr. Yvette Leche is recognized for her opening remarks, and then we'll hear from Commissioner Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Leche, can you mute your WebEx?
It is working?
That's what I
Can you hear me better now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, everyone. My name is Commissioner Lecce. I'm very excited to be here today. My background is healthcare. I have been in the Baltimore region for quite some time now. I'm very excited to hear more about all the wonderful things our department is doing, and I look forward to the rest of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Lecce. Commissioner Johnson. Do we have him?
Are you all able to hear me okay?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, thank the Lord. All right, well, thank you for being with us today. I'm Commissioner Johnson. My background is a little bit of civil rights and planning and project management, and I'm definitely interested in learning more about what's happening at the Baltimore City Fire Department. And I'll mostly be listening in, taking notes, and thinking about it in the context of the documents we've had in preparation for the meeting today. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. So this evening, we've convened under the authority of Article 4 of the City Code to engage in the first of a series of conversations concerning equity and opportunity in Baltimore City. That's broadly, but in city government more particularly. And this evening's hearing focuses on fire and emergency medical services in the city. And these services are provided by a dedicated corps of public professionals within the Baltimore City Fire Department. I, along with my colleagues, am grateful for the cooperation and willingness of Chief Niles Ford and the leadership of the fire department who join us today. The past 2.5 years have proven taxing on many city services and service providers. The persistent challenges of the global COVID-19 pandemic have affected how we all go about our daily lives. More particularly, the adjustments made to how services are rendered has added a new level of complexity and challenge to an already complicated discussion around equity and access, not only in Baltimore City, but in jurisdictions around the country. The purpose of our conversation tonight is to better understand these various dynamics and the effects on the quality and quantity of services provided, and to ensure that these services do not violate the legal requirements of civil rights laws to provide these public services in a non-discriminatory way, either intentionally or with disparate effect and impact. This is not to say that the fire services in the city are not in keeping with these requirements. However, it is the duty of the Community Relations Commission to trust but verify that city government works for all the people of Baltimore City and not just those who are often viewed as an entitled few. To this end, this evening's hearing represents the beginning of a series of public conversations that will take place with all of the city agencies over time. It is not the purpose nor the intent of this commission to create any public intrigue about how the city conducts its business in this environment of extreme political hostility that we have all seen. The commissioners of the Community Relations Commission all believe that it is our responsibility to engage credibly, authentically, and in compliance with relevant civil rights laws to ensure that each agency of city government fulfills its obligation that our public servants in the fire department and in other city agencies demonstrate every day. So again, welcome, Chief Niles Ford. You've been here for a while now. I went back and looked at the bio and tried to remember when you came from Omaha, Nebraska, and I must tell you, you have shown great persistence and resilience. We're glad you're here. I think your service speaks for itself. The floor is yours, sir, for your opening remarks, and then we'll engage in some conversation. Chief Ford, thank you for coming.
Chairman, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with my team. I'll introduce them in a moment, but I want to highlight where you started at, sir, where you took a moment of silence to recognize the individuals we lost in 2022. Of course, Juan Wilson, who just recently passed this past weekend, who succumbed to an illness, an emergency he had literally on the scene caring for another patient at that time. Also, Captain Anthony Workman, who passed away not long ago before that. Also, firefighter EMT Preston Coddington, who passed away not long, actually, even before that. January the 24th, which is etched in all of our minds when we lost 3 firefighters responding to a house fire. Firefighter paramedic Kenny Lacayo, Lieutenant Kelsey Sadler, and Lieutenant Paul Buttram. And we've had a tough year. And we stick together as a family, and we keep moving forward because our calling is service. And we take that very seriously. As you stated, we are here to serve the entire population, from the north, the south, east, and west, whether it's the perspective of the black butterfly, the white L. We're here to take care of everyone. And our people's goal is a high level of service, consistent with the sermon Dr. King gave from the drummer major Instinct, where our job is service. And if we want to be great, and our goal for Baltimore City Fire Department is greatness. And the only way that Dr. King said you can be great is through service. And our people are committed to that. Now I'm here and I'm excited to talk about all of our progresses, all of our long steps forward, all of our challenges, and how we've gotten over some of them and how we're still dealing with some. We certainly are an open book because our goal is to be better every day. So I'd like to introduce some of the people that are with me. Executive Assistant Chief Roman Clark, I think he's right on my right shoulder. Assistant Chief of Safety and Member Services, Chief Savela. Deputy Chief of Education and Training, Chief Lars Shiloh. Equity Coordinator, Kim Washington to my right. Acting Director of Human Resources, Jamar Rain to my right as well. Captain Yancey, who is my assistant, my direct assistant, my Chief of Staff, Amy Beth Leisure, my BCFD General Counsel, Eileen Brown, who is also to my left. I'd like to start into a presentation we prepared for you all, which is, I got to be honest with you, is very comprehensive, because we wanted to make sure that we provided you with as much information as we possibly could. I think we handed those out, as well as our annual report, and I'd like to start into that. I also have James, I'm sorry, what is your last name? James Lawrence, I always just call him James. Thank you for being here. That's our IT support. Nowadays, in COVID, you got to travel with one. So, I don't know if you, okay. First of all, I'd like to start talking about our mission statement, our vision, and our values. Our mission statement, BCFD, is a diverse and evolving extension of the community, committed to providing excellent service to all we serve in a professional and humanitarian manner. Our way. We pledge to protect lives, property, and the environment through a safe, effective, and timely response. We will be innovative in providing service in emergency medical services, fire suppression, rescue, emergency communication, fire prevention, community outreach, education, and other services as well. Our vision is to remain committed to providing residents a safer and healthier neighborhood through an engaged, educated, and diverse workforce. BCFD members are dedicated to safety and improving the quality of life for others. Our values are simple: accountability, integrity, professionalism, and respect. There's something we walk around with on our patch every day, and it says, pride protecting people. If you can move forward, James, a few slides. I think forward is where I'm at right now. Thank you. We're an organization of almost 1,800 people. I want to point that out so when we move further, you understand how large our organization is. Over 1,400 sworn members. We have union professional organizations, IFF Local 734, Local 964. 734 are not just firefighters, are the firefighter level members in our organization. Local 964 are our fire officers, up to the rank of battalion chief. CUB are mostly our administrative and civilian members. MAPS are our leadership. They may be civilian, they may also be sworn. BCFD includes several divisions: fire suppression, special operations, emergency medical services, Office of the Fire Marshal, 911 call center. Commissioner, it is no more true what you said when you said if you call for help, you're calling a firefighter. 911 is in the fire service chain of command. It was moved to the fire service around 6 years ago. It used to be, right over 6 years ago, it used to be in BCIT then. And they moved it over to us because we're an emergency service. And at that point, we started moving to correct a lot of circumstances and challenges they had. And I think our members and our leadership have been very effective at doing that. Within our chain of command, we also have fire communications and dispatch, and we also have Office of Emergency Management, Administration, which includes HR, physical, equity coordinators, logistic and fire maintenance, BCFD IT, fire academy and training, communications, and community engagement. Now, as a public safety emergency service organization, BCFD serves all who call. We serve all the residents, no matter what part of the city they're from, no matter what their demographics. We do not know that when they call. We're also the first ISO. ISO stands for Insurance Service Organization. Around 7 years ago, we were right at 8 years old, actually, 8 years ago exactly, we were a number 2 ISO organization. The lower your number is, the better the insurance rate is for your citizens and your businesses in your city. So we went after the process of improving that number. We became the first one ISO organization in the state of Maryland. Now I think there are 2 other ones. We're the busiest EMS organization per 1,000 population in the country.
Absolutely.
We also have 39 fire stations, 35 engine companies, 17 truck companies, 36 EMS transport units, 6 specialty units. BCFD responds to around 150,000 calls. 30,000 calls are, 150,000, sorry, EMS, 30,000 are fire-related or other emergency response-related calls. But per unit call, meaning every time a unit runs, we do somewhere around 250,000, 260,000 calls. BCFD Human Resources. BCFD HR division strives to provide effective and efficient support services for employees that align with the BFC's mission and values, as I stated earlier. We take a whole lot of pride in diverse and equity hiring opportunities, facilitating smooth onboarding processes for services related to employees' needs, all while developing talents, skills through an engaging work experience. The HR service includes, but are not limited to, our internal EEO investigations, management of accommodations and processes, leave inquiries and resolutions, promotional processes, recruitment and hiring, labor management and union relationships, complaint resolutions, conflict management, compensation, inquiries, resolutions, policy administration, revisions, general employee inquiry assistance. They have a direct phone number, and it's actually given to all the employees. It's on our website. It's given to the employees when they initially get hired, and they maintain that information. We also have a dedicated email address for HR. We also have a dedicated ADA accommodation contact email. HR contact information provided, as I said, to recruits and recruit school, duties, policies, and procedure manuals. You're going to hear me talk, and I'm going to continuously basically say the same metaphor. A lot of information is repetitive, and we provide it from birth till metaphoric completion of life in the fire service, meaning from the time they get hired till the time they retire. And some of it we literally do when they're testing to get the job. Department-wide bulletins periodically published to remind all members of HR contact information, employee assistance programs, wellness resources, and general availability for assistance. HR contact information, like I said earlier, is on the website. The fire chief and assistant chief, including all the assistant chiefs, including the assistant chief over HR, Safety Member Services. We meet monthly with both 734 and 964 to cover any issues and complaints they have from the members. Also, for lack of a better word, they have all of us on bat phone, and they use it. They call myself, they call the assistant chiefs, and when they have issues, we try to resolve them right away. BCFD HR also works closely with our partners at the Department of Human Resources, Finance, Office of Labor Commissioners, and the Fire and Police Pension to help resolve members' issues as they arise. BCFD recruitment and hiring process. We have a recruitment committee. And we have a very diverse recruitment committee, not just based on ethnicity, race, but based on job specifications. We tried to reach broadly throughout the organization. We have 22 males, 24 females, 2 members of the LGBTQ community, 27 African Americans, 15 Caucasians, and 4 Hispanics. The recruitment committee regularly attends job fairs to provide information about benefits of working for Baltimore City Fire Department, not just as a firefighter, not just as an EMT. We explain to them all the options that we have: 911, dispatch, fire marshal's office, HR, finance, because you don't even have to be a sworn person to do some of these jobs. So we try to articulate and broaden that net as far as possible. The recruitment committee also develops a schedule of neighborhoods, school and universities, military job fairs, and community organizations to visit and conduct recruitment activities. That includes colleges and universities, as I said. Recent recruitment community events include Billie Holiday Blues Festival, Fleet Week, Charm City Live, Hispanic Heritage Festival, Bolton Hill Community Association meeting, and the Hamden Fest. Recent recruitment pop-up shops include Rec and Park Centers, every city council district, Veterans Recruitment Fairs, Baltimore City Community College, Baltimore City High Schools, Pennsylvania and Lawrence Street, Broadway Street Market, Probation and Parole Offices, Maryland Office of Employment Development. I want to go back to the previous bullet point when we talked about probation and parole. There was one time that we were not able to hire people with felonies. As an organization, there was one stumbling block, one challenge to that, and it's the National Registry of Emergency Medical Services, and you have to have an EMT certifications. We literally called that organization daily until they got tired of us calling them. Literally. And what they asked us to do is they asked us to ask for approval for felons on a case-by-case basis. So just to let you know, we are encouraging felons to apply. Don't negatively impact yourself from the beginning and not get in the race. Put yourself in the process. The recruitment committee has set up pop-up application stations in firehouses with laptops to help people with accessibility issues to apply for positions. In other words, we literally have recruitment members go to fire stations. We announce that we're going, or we have the radio stations there, and we have people to make sure that their applications are completed from stem to stern, because that was one of our challenges. BCFD websites include a recruitment section that contains updated job posting, brochures, BCFD exam video preps, EMT firefighter physical agility test prep videos, among other resources. When BCFD's vacant positions are posted with DHR, they are posted throughout a number of different social networks as well. We also post in local area community organization magazines, social networks, and run radio advertisements. BCFD Communications and Community Engagement Office also develops social media campaigns whenever we are recruiting, particularly for EMT firefighter, EMT and paramedic positions. Now I want to take a moment just to show you a video, and I don't know if you all can see what's on the screen. I hope so. Okay. Can you bring it up for me, James? The video of Captain Yancey and Chief McConnell. It's, are you ready? Thank you. Sorry to drop that on you last minute.
You may have to stop sharing and reshare the video.
It's just funny because James said I'm coming over there early to make sure everything works. That's why you see the frustration through the mask.
Well, see, we're glad that the fire department is the first group to do the hearing because we know y'all know how to figure stuff out.
One way or another. We're MacGyvers, if nothing else.
Absolutely, absolutely. So while they're trying to figure that out, Chair, may I be recognized for just a moment?
Yes, ma'am, floor is yours.
Okay, I was just wondering if you might work with us after this to hear a little bit more about how you were able to get that change so that felons could be hired. I think that's something, Chair Yeary, that I would like this commission to consider taking up.
It's done on a case-by-case basis, like I said, but there were only go ahead, he has the video up.
Thank you.
That's my grandfather to hit sound.
No.
Still not doing that. Don't tell you about it.
Okay.
So the way we did it, and what initiated me doing it was I was at a community event, and a barber asked me, said, "Let me ask you a question, Chief. I love all the programs you're putting in place. Can you hire somebody that has a felony?" I thought about it, and I said, "No." And he said, "Good luck." He said, "Because I talk to these young people day in and day out, and they have historical challenges." And I felt, you know, how you walk in and you're bragging about the programs you're doing, then you don't think about the blind spots you have. So what we did, we committed ourselves to figure that out. So we kept, I hate to say it, all we did was bug the heck out of them and say, we've got to have this, we need this. And ultimately, literally, I mean, they knew me by name after a while, and they said, "This is Chief Ford, just don't call us anymore." And that's how it played out. But I explained to them the fact that our goal is to offer this opportunity in our community, and we literally would miss a large number of people who need second chances. So.
Now that's, Madam Director, I think that's an important point, and I don't know how many of my colleagues made note of it when the chief mentioned it, because I think there's a great deal of follow-up, and at some point, Chief, it'd be interesting to know how you're able to navigate that process with the current ordinance on ban the box. How are you able to make sure that we remain compliant and still be able to advocate for folks who may need an exception granted to be able to make a hire? So,
when people apply for us, because it is such a secure job, you have to go into people's houses, you have to be trusted. And so when you fill out the application, we have to do background checks, pretty extensive ones. And what we put in place is that we would know exactly what the problem was with the felony. We'd know that it was distant between where they are now, so they've had an opportunity to have a productive life at that point. Also, we were aware it had to be a non-violent felony, which is most of our people that have felonies. So it opened up a whole slew of people, and that's part of the agreement I came up with National Registry. We can go ahead and go on through and I'll send you a hyperlink to these presentations. You really, with this one, I'll give you outline. Captain Yancey is to my right. She's sitting with her children, and she talks about why she joined the fire department, how important it was to her. Chief Maya McConnell is another young lady that's very involved in our organization, another superstar like Captain Yancey, and she's talking about her kids, her daughters, and how she looks at the fire service and how important it was. And you'll see as I move down, one of our challenges is to get women. The reason why I keep pointing at you, because you know you're in the fire service. One of our challenges is trying to encourage women to get in the fire service, not just get in the fire service, but seek advancement as well. Because you can't make people challenge the promotional exam. They have to choose to do it, right? So let's talk about the hiring process first. Our written test, I got feedback. I'll just continue. Our hiring process is as follows. We have a written test. The written test was developed by a third-party vendor. And the test has no questions that are fire-related questions. Now, they may use fire as a backdrop for the question. They don't ask any questions fire. But the questions are based greatly on reading comprehension, integrity, and customer service. And I'm going to say this probably 3 or 4 times as we go through this. I don't hire firefighters. I hire good people and I train them to be firefighters and EMTs. So I don't want you to come in with the experience, quite frankly. Yeah, it does happen. It's not bad, doesn't hurt me. But I want to be able to mold you to the culture we want to have as we go out and care for our community. So our written exam used to be written at a 10th grade level. And amongst our team, we evaluated to see how far, because we know, quite frankly, the challenges our school system has sometimes. So we wanted to be conscious of that. We had it written at an 8th grade level. And Chief Shiloh and her team, when they do run into issues with people that are having challenges, they literally stay after and they come in early with the individuals that are struggling to give them every opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't wash out, because the fire training is a community college, it's a junior college level freshman, sophomore level training episode. And EMS is something that non-traditional people who get into fire service have never been exposed to, knowing anatomy and physiology, things of that nature. So it's a tough job. It's a tough process. So one of the things that Chief Shiloh and her and her team do an exceptional job to really try. It is still recruit school. There's still standards. You still have to show up on time. And it's tough. But they take the time to work through and make sure people are, if they choose to be successful, they will be. But I got to be honest with you, I also give them this direction. Don't work harder for somebody than they're willing to work for their own job. The other thing we do have in place is interviews. That's something that we started soon after I got here. We changed the process. It was a time that firefighters interviewed firefighters. I stopped that, and we use community people. We literally have approximately 500 volunteers who will come in, and they're trained by a third-party agency with valid and reliable questions based on customer service and integrity, and we interview them for the job. And we hire based upon the recommendations from our community people. So for all practical purposes, your neighbor hires your firefighters. The physical agility test, we made changes in it in 2021, and some of the biggest changes we made, and we also have a video that people can see. We'll send that to you as well, since we're having some of the challenges we're having. We changed the process. It used to be a time if you didn't pass it, you just didn't get in. What we did was we gave people an opportunity to come, put their hands on the equipment. If you felt like you could pass it, try it, challenge it. You can go through it, but you're not challenging it if you don't want to challenge it. And then we send you through a process of training for weeks to prepare for it. And in that episode, I think we saved or brought back additional 23 females and 9 male candidates in that process. And Chief Shiloh was in charge of that, and Chief McConnell and other members. And a lot of this was driven, quite frankly, by a couple groups, Fire EMS Committee I put together to advise me on ins and outs of what's going on. And we established an organization of women in fire service that we call the Phoenix, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. BCFD promotional process. So the promotional process greatly is governed by Local 734 and 964's MOU. It's in Article 25 of both MOU contracts. The promotional test is a process that's managed by the City Department of Human Resources. All requirements are included in the job posting, including study material, well ahead of time. Test is validated by a third-party organization to be reliable and job-related. DHR allows for a challenge for a short period after the following of the exam. Any questions that people look at and they say that they don't believe it was valid or it was consistent with the study material, they have the ability to challenge it. And DHR creates a certified ranked list for BCFD. We are required and governed by the MOU to promote by a rule of one. What that means is, if you scored number one on the exam, you will be the first person promoted. If you're number two, you're the next, third, so on and so forth. I can't navigate from that list. The promotional process, that's specifically for fire EMS, right? The promotional process for specialized groups like fire inspectors, fire investigators, or things like that. The process is a little different. It is developed, built out to be reliable and valid based upon the information that these individuals have to prepare for. We test them. We have them interview before a panel of 3 people. One's a subject matter expert from outside the organization, and at least one is a BCFD HR representative. Interview questions are designed by the BCFD hiring manager from reference material. BCFD HR division reviews and edits the questions as needed. BCFD HR determines overall scores and ranks the candidates, providing additional points for seniority. But even after all that, it's still rule of one. BCFD Fire Academy. EMTs, paramedics, EMT firefighters, and officers are trained by a group of very experienced, knowledgeable BCFD instructors who are credentialed through the University of Maryland, Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute. During the past year, the Academy developed a new officer training for leaders and aspiring leaders. In addition, the Academy maintains a partnership with Baltimore City Public Schools and the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, which offers high school students an opportunity to receive fire EMT training through the Career Technical Education CTE program through Baltimore City Schools. Once a student graduates and they're in our program and they complete all the material they're supposed to complete, they are eligible to apply for an entry-level position and come right in the organization. The Academy currently is in the process of developing a youth apprenticeship program in partnership with the Maryland Apprenticeship and Training. And I should point this out, Chief Shiloh applied for that, and she worked very hard. And the reason why is because we have had a high school program, and now we've had to contract it and focus on the school that brought in the instructor to do everything that it needed to do to move it forward. And Chief Shiloh wanted to expand it throughout the entire school system. So she felt the best way to do that is apply for a process of Maryland apprenticeship program through the state. So that apprenticeship program, I'm just going to hit it real quick, allows her to pay a certain salary for people to train, and this allows it throughout the school system. Camp Sparks. Now, the reason why I'm looking pitiful and frustrated is because I love that video, and we can't show it. Look, Camp Spark is our 2-day fire service empowerment camp facilitated by BCFD Training Academy. It was developed in, was it 2018, correct? Yeah, 2018, with a focus to provide hands-on opportunity for girls to gain leadership skills, participate in real-world firefighting experience, focus on team building, and engage in hands-on fire EMS simulations and more. Although the children are 12 to 16 age, are welcome to attend. In short, it's not closed only to young ladies. We do open it to young men, and I think we had 3 this past year. 3? Okay, one this past year, one the previous time. So and I even had an opportunity to speak to these young men, young boys, and I told them they were blessed with an experience that most men don't have, an opportunity to see girls work on their own level without the exposure of dealing with us and us putting pressure on them. And they were able to see the way these young ladies excelled and out in 100-degree weather, running with hoses, running with gear on. That's a video I want you to see. We gotta send it to you. I'm telling you. Chief Shiloh, you all did an outstanding job on that. In fact, the young lady, Lieutenant Kelsey Sadler, who passed away, she was extremely experienced. She was involved, and she was important to make it work. So she is missed, and the good thing about it, she did expose a lot of young people to herself. So I'm hoping that we get breeds just out of her. So. BCFD initiated its equity assessment program. Did I jump ahead? Am I okay? Okay. Or not? Yeah, I'm at the BCFD initiated its equity assessment program in accordance with the mandates of City Ordinance 180023. BCFD has had a dedicated equity, and I should have added this way, an amazing dedicated, and I mean it, equity coordinator since February of 2021, who works in conjunction with the city's Office of Equity and Civil Rights. We were one of the first agencies to hire a full-time EC. The EC reports directly to me, meets with me monthly, outlines all the issues. Now, what else isn't included, she sits and she's involved with each affinity group. So she's a member of each group, and she can make recommendations if something comes out of our. In fact, we had an issue that happened recently, and she called me right away and said, we got to deal with this. This is a challenge. She has a dedicated email address, phone number, so issues can come to her. Equity program is on our webpage, and in furtherance in direction of our mayor, we did develop a BCFD blueprint for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I believe you have a copy of that as well. The blueprint outlines the blueprint's guiding principles are intended to provide a framework for how BCFD will work to further diversity and diversity in the department, improve working conditions for all members, and provide even better services to the community. The ongoing core of the blueprint are policy analysis and review, data collections and evaluation, recruitment and retention, education and training, community engagement, and involvement. Recent equity programs, trainings include LGBTQ 101, facilitated by Jabari Lyles, COO of Baltimore Safe Haven, and it's intended to help our members understand some of the challenges of our LGBTQ community, to make sure that we assist them in the proper way and respect them in the proper way. The impact of structural and institutional racism of health, facilitated by Dr. Sharita Hill Golden, VP and Chief Diversity Officer for Johns Hopkins Medicine. It was mandatory training for all employees, by the way. BCFD's Equity Coordinator facilitated training on the following topics at BCFD Inaugural Officer Training in 2022. Distinctions between diversity, equity, and inclusion, unconscious bias, microaggressions. Training for Chief's top management team, Office of the Fire Marshal and EMS on the language of on the use of language line resource for interpretation services for non-English speakers, facilitated by Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. Unconscious bias training is also provided and required by all members. Now, the affinity groups. We have various affinity groups. Currently, we have Vulcan Blazers, which is a long-standing advocacy group that was founded in 1970, is affiliated with the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. And their goal is to promote a diverse workplace and eliminate discrimination. Vision include expanding pathways for access and success through engagement, mentorship, professional development, and community services. As you're going to see, we've been able to do pretty decently improving our numbers across the board. I'd argue that these groups were instrumental in making that happen. We also have Phoenix. Phoenix is our National Women in the Fire Service organization affiliate. In fact, Captain Yancey is a national position holder for women in fire. She's also involved in Vulcan, and she's a national position holder with the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. But Phoenix is an organization we created in-house as a chapter, for all practical purpose, of women in fire service, and they have been extraordinarily instrumental with us moving several things forward. Serves all members of BCFD to provide equity, which will lead to betterment for all. So it doesn't matter. I have been a member of Women in the Fire Service since 2009, I think. So LGBTQ committee. BCFD is at LGBTQ liaison who manages the committee and works in conjunction with the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs. At the committee's recommendation, BCFD installed gender-neutral bathroom signs in all stations, and in partnership with BPD, designated all stations as a safe place for individuals who feel they have been victims of anti-LGBTQ crimes. BCFD is also in the process of developing a Hispanic Latino firefighter organization that's going to be affiliated with the National Association of Hispanic Firefighters. I've been a member of that organization since 2006. And we do have interested people, and we're going to partner with Philadelphia, who has a very strong National Association of Hispanic Firefighter organization. So in respects to EEO, there are policies that we obey, we respect, and we carry out in our process. Most of them are listed in AM 203-5, reasonable accommodations, 204-18, equal employment opportunities, 204-7, lactation accommodation, 207-3, religious accommodation, 226-1, sexual harassment. BCFD also has MOPs. We have manuals of procedures which supplement the AM. And the MOPs are intended to provide uniformity in the interpretation and implementation of procedures, but not to cover every specific act or omission or to take the place of the AM. The MOPs contain certain internal EEO-related procedures to supplement the AM, including pregnancy policy, sexual harassment policy, internal complaint policy, outside agency complaint, discrimination, harassment, interference, obstruction, medical information privacy, the HIPAA. Equal Employment Opportunity AM 204-18 BCFD follows all requirements of the city's EEO policy, including but not limited to the provisions related to reporting complaint process and no retaliation. Employment decisions are based on merit, qualifications, experience, and skills without regard to any status protected by law. The AM provides that concerns about discrimination or harassment should be brought to the attention of a supervisor or a manager, an HR representative, or the agency's EEO officer, who is right there. So the AM strictly prohibits retaliation, and anyone found to have engaged in retaliations in violation of the policy is subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination. MOP 385, discrimination. BCFD's MOP emphasizes that BCFD does not tolerate any form of discrimination, including but not limited to that prohibited by Title VII, ADEA, and ADA. Notifies members that all issues, questions, and complaints involving discrimination should be brought to the attention of the fire department's EEO officer, who is responsible for handling the same confidentiality expeditiously and without fear of reprisal. Contact information for our EEO officer is provided. The MOP also notifies members that they may file external EEO complaints with the Baltimore City Community Relations Commission's Maryland Commission on Human Relations or Equal Employment Opportunity Commissions. BCFD provides notice, access, and training on the city's EEO complaint policies and BCFD's EEO MOPs. DHR Office of Learning and Development provide BCFD with 2-day new employee orientation programs at the Fire Academy. Training includes, but are not limited to, EEO overview, sexual harassment, DEI, workplace violence, overview of city's administrative manual. BCFD's Training Academy Manual provides information about AM 204-18, which is the EEO policy, AM 203-5, reasonable accommodations, and sexual harassment policies and procedures. BCFD's Training Academy recently rolled out a new officer training, which includes managerial level training on harassment and discrimination. And I want to point out Chief Shiloh again, because she went after the grants that made that possible. I think it was over $1.4 million, to $1.3 million. The training also is provided on DEI, unconscious bias, and microaggression. All BCFD employees have access to the internet in order to access the city's AM and the BCFD MOPs containing various EO and ADA policies. BCFD's website with a link to FAQ for Americans with Disability Act. In addition, when a member is deemed permanently unable to perform functions by the Public Safety Infirmary, RPSI, BCFD HR sends the employee a letter notifying the member of the ADA accommodation process and providing copies of the AM 203-5, the accommodation request form, and HR contact information. Reasonable accommodation process. As discussed above, BCFD adheres to the city's reasonable accommodation policies and processes. When a member requests an accommodation, HR schedules a meeting to discuss the employee's needs and engages an interactive process. If at this meeting, the member has not yet completed the medical questionnaire paperwork, BCFD HR guides them through the process. HR then requests the employee to have their medical provider complete the form to ensure that BCFD understands the type of accommodations that this employee needs. BCFD HR will meet with the employee until a resolution is determined as to whether or not the BCFD can provide the accommodation consistent with the AM and the ADA. BCFD may approve the requested accommodation as presented by the employee, suggest one or more alternatives, or deny the request if no reasonable accommodations are available. EEO complaints filed by BCFD members with CRC. Since 2012, we've only had 11 external EEO complaints that have been filed with the CRC by BCFD members alleging discrimination and/or retaliation. This is noticeable because we exceed 1,500 members. To be exact, we have almost 1,800 members. To date, none of those complaints in the past decade has received a probable cause finding by the CRC. 0 discriminations or retaliation complaints were filed with the CRC by BCFD members in 2021. To date, 0 discrimination or retaliation complaints have been filed with the CRC by BCFD members in 2022. BCFD's General Counsel responds on BCFD's behalf on all CRC complaints. BCFD's internal EEO complaint investigation process. BCFD HR receives 8 internal EEO had received in 2022 received 8 internal complaints. 5 of them were determined unsubstantiated, and 3 are still being investigated. All internal EEO complaints received by BCFD are treated in a consistent and objective manner following a structured process. BCFD HR's EEO officer first contacts the complainant, responds to respondent and witnesses to schedule individual interviews. At the start of each interview, before any questions are asked, the following is discussed with each person: confidentiality of the process and the need for honesty. Anti-retaliations, for example, everyone has the right to file a complaint should you feel you are being retaliated against for having participated in this process. Contact HR immediately so actions can be taken in reference to AM 204-18, equal employment opportunities. The outcome process is explained to complainant and respondent. BCFD's EEO officer reviews all evidence, including credibility of witnesses, statements, the applicable policies, and etc. A final determination is made by the EEO officer, who sends the outcome letters to the complainant and respondents. The letters include information about anti-retaliation. The majority of internal EEO complaints are determined to be unsubstantiated. If the complaint is determined by the BCFD HR equity officer to be substantiated, the matter generally is referred through the discipline process and/or city EAP if workplace violence as appropriate. Now, looking ahead, next week we plan on meeting with DHR to review our EEO recruit training, our current EEO recruit training. We plan to adjust and revalidate our current EMT firefighter physical agility test. That actually has the concept of reevaluating it was driven by the Fire EMS Committee and the Phoenix. Facets, an outside consultant, is conducting studies and preparing reports related to BCFD operations, compliance, and investigatory structures and promotional practices. This analysis will also consider station assignments to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion. BCFD currently is awaiting the recommendations. In FY23, once the facets the reports are completed, we plan to use those reports and our equity blueprint to execute a thorough examination of our organization's policies and procedures to ensure we are creating a welcoming environment for an increasingly diverse workforce. We intend to explore offering additional training to ensure the new policies filter down throughout the ranks of the organization. Work with partners to establish a more robust apprenticeship program to engage Baltimore City High School students and enhance access to BCFD employment pathway for more city residents. Continue to engage neighborhoods, organizations, and community members in the hiring process to enhance diversity of recruit classes and to highlight the importance of inclusivity and community partnerships. BCFD Safety Member Services Division is in the process of creating an internal affairs division to ensure, and we're doing a play on those words because our concern with internal affairs is to our members it throws a negative connotation, and that's not the goal. So we're looking at other words as other titles for that division to ensure greater consistency in the disciplinary process. Finalizing the development of operational manuals for lieutenants, captains, battalion chiefs to assist in better promotional opportunities and preparation for all members. In fact, this was created by the members, by Fire EMS Committee and other members, this process. In 2023, we plan to start recruitment for a new EMT firefighter class with a focus on community outreach and diversity. In FY23, we also will work with our LGBTQ and our Phoenix committees on targeted programming for our women and LGBTQ members and continue outreach and communications to the community. Additionally, we have the opportunity to build 2 new fire stations in FY23. The process is going to begin in FY23. It's going to take longer than that. And renovate up to 6 additional stations. This will give us an opportunity to create living and working conditions for our members that are healthier and more comfortable. A large number of our fire stations are 100 years old or greater. Those new stations also will allow us to house additional equipment on site, enabling us to better serve the community. The renovations also will provide us the opportunity to create additional space that can be used by the community to hold meetings and allow for greater interaction between BCFD and the community we serve. Now, in closing, what I am going to say is what I normally say to our members, what I say to our recruits. I say a lot to our recruits, but the fire department is part of the community. We live there. Our members live there 20 to 30% of the time. That's the reason why they take very seriously running calls, being as expeditiously and as competent as possible. And part of what I just said is as we build out our stations and we're able to help the community in the stations more, it is our intentions. We want them in our stations. We want them to feel that the community leadership feels a part of it, and they can come in and talk to our members and hold meetings or whatever. So that's one of our biggest goals, right? We have many goals, but that's one of our goals from a capital standpoint. And any questions?
Well, Chief Ford, thank you for a very robust presentation. There are some questions from the commissioners. I just want to make sure you've been standing for a while. You're good to go?
I'm good to go.
Further? All right.
Yes, sir.
I know you're in the fire service, so I'm sure standing is the, you don't have any equipment on your back, so you should be good for a little while. All right. That's good to know. At this point, we're going to invite the commissioners to ask questions of you. Each commissioner will be recognized for a period of up to 5 minutes for the questions. Any questions that we don't get asked tonight, we're not going to carry the meeting over. We will hold the record open for any questions that are itching that we need to get a response on before we close the record, and I'll note that later. At this point, Commissioner Finnegan-Carr, you recognize you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief Ford. I truly appreciated your very thorough presentation. Okay, thank you. And so I have 2 questions for follow-up for you.
Yes, ma'am.
You described in detail the types of training that are provided regarding discrimination, your EEO policies, things of that nature. But one of my questions for you related to that is, how do you measure the effectiveness of those trainings? How do you know that, people are going to comply by what you have provided? For example, LGBTQ 101, structural racism, when you give those trainings, how are you able to see whether or not people are accepted that training information?
Jamar, I'll let you start.
Well, good afternoon. Again, Jamar Rain, acting HR chief. So one of the ways of effectively monitoring it is looking at the statistics. I'm a numbers person, so making sure if the trainings are being offered, looking at the statistics of, are the complaints are they continue to rise? Are they actually going down? That to me is letting me know if they're being effective or not. Also listening to the complaints that are coming in. So if the complaints are continually being of the same nature, or are they changing?
Thank you. Thank you very much. My second question is with regard to the department's policies and procedures on reasonable accommodations, and you went into at length naming them, and how they are all present in your administrative manual, which I appreciate, which means that it should be in their pockets, hands, computers, whatever at all times. But in follow-up to that, I'm just wondering, how often are those reviewed and updated?
The policies we follow are the city's policies. So we pay attention to whether or not the city makes any changes, but we are obligated to follow their policies, and it breeds consistency across the city.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
Can I ask a follow-up right there?
Yes, please.
So am I to understand that the review of the policies, is that an annual training? What's the frequency of the review, whether there's a change in city ordinance or not?
Is it review or I'm not saying we review the policy for changes. What I'm saying is we adhere to the city's policies. What we do is we offer training based on those policies. Annually through the department, when you get hired in the department, and now since we've developed our officer training, it's being embedded in that. So I was told repetition is good for the soul. So we try to continuously put it in front of people.
Very well.
But we maintain teaching the city's policy.
Actually, I do have one more question if I have one more minute left.
You still have your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I won't even go there. So just in terms of the overall, what you've provided to us, especially because you are one of the busiest fire services, as you mentioned, and the numbers per 1,000 residents is astronomical to me. Can you describe for us how the pandemic has impacted your response time especially when it comes to both, members of the fire service being impacted and members of the community at those numbers?
And that's a very good question, because we are dealing with the same challenges that for all practical purposes, professional, all risk, all hazard response organizations have it in the country. Furthermore, because we have an EMS component, we are dealing with some of the same issues that the hospitals are dealing with. So there are dynamics, there are challenges we've had based upon COVID. Everything from staffing challenges to delayed response based upon challenges that the hospital may have, right? So what we've done is there's many things we've tried to do in order to make sure we maintain a decent response time, because I think that's basically what you're focusing on. We even early on, before COVID actually even became a thing, our leadership team reached out to Chief Scroggins of Seattle. It was still engulfing the nursing homes there in Kings County. And he sat down and told us 2 weeks after, I think, because we knew it was coming. We've actually had other pandemics. This one was significant, but we've had other ones. So we reached out to him, and he told us what challenges we had, how we should prepare, the mistakes they made. We basically worked his playbook, and we took a step further. We contracted with the outside ambulance service to handle our lower acuity calls. So we robustly improved our response time based upon that. It's still challenging, but we work to try to improve it proactively.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioner Evangelista.
Yes, thank you, Chair. First, Chief, thank you so much for this comprehensive presentation. I'm a big supporter of the fire department, so I do appreciate this comprehensive report. You mentioned Equity Blueprint.
Yes.
As part of the process that you have in the fire department. Could you give me some concrete examples of some professional development as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as anti-racism?
You want to start?
Good evening, Kim Washington, Equity Coordinator. One of the most comprehensive trainings we had was facilitated by Chief Shiloh, and that was our officers training. And it was, I guess, every lieutenant, captain, up to battalion chief for a week had training on different groups. It was the same training every day for 6 days on unconscious bias, microaggressions, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, sort of the difference and the distinctions between the three. And it was sort of the first inaugural attempt to provide that type of training to our senior level folks so that hopefully they can start to think and process these things differently, so that it can filter down. Everyone gets that training, but to sort of emphasize it at the officer level, we hope we'll start the conversation on how do I look at situations differently? How do we treat situations that come up? Our service is very different. Our folks live together. And so it's a different thing. You don't get to sort of turn off at 5 o'clock. You have to sleep next to the person that you might be having a problem with. And so trying to make sure that we think of those things and recognize our workforce is different and how we can bring folks along. And so that's sort of our initial, and we are looking at ways, once we get our facets report back, to look at more of our policies so that we are doing things based on data and not on anecdotes.
Sure.
So.
Thank you. Chief, I know that you're aware that many public safety agencies are facing issues with attrition. What can your office currently do to help keep paramedics and firefighters from going to other jurisdictions for better pay, better equipment, and better working conditions?
It is a challenge. It's a challenge across the country. I was at the Metro Fire Chiefs function. Metro Fire Chiefs is an organization with fire chiefs of organizations greater than 500 members. And all the way, everybody discussed this as being an issue, all the way to California, LA City, and LA County. You have individuals who are marketable and they jump from place to place for money, more money, less calls. And as I just said, we run the greatest number of calls per 1,000 population in the country. What we tried to do is we tried to the best of our ability, to try to create an environment that people would want to be here. What brought me to Baltimore City and what has absolutely kept me here is the fact that I feel like I'm needed and I can make a difference. And that's part of our selling point with our members, that they do make a difference. Every day when they get off from work, they can talk about what they did to change somebody's life. That's one thing we're doing. We also are trying to continuously recruit and add more members. Not only, we need to keep the people we have, yes, but we need to add people. So we're doing everything we can do to recruit, add people, and make the job as marketable as possible to them. But the other component that's very important is we probably will always need, from my perspective, a outside agency to handle lower acuity calls. We're also in the process, from an EMS standpoint, to think very innovatively about how we do EMS calls. And what I mean by that, Commissioner, is the question is not whether or not we respond to the call. The question is, what do we do when we get there? Every person doesn't need to be transported, right? Every person doesn't need the same level of care. Some people we may be able to treat at home. So right now, what I've told my members is that our goal is that EMS starts catching up with the times, because we've been doing EMS the same way for 50 years. And quite frankly, I'm being really frank about this. It's broken, not just here, across the country. So right now we're at the point where we're thinking of innovative things, we're doing them, and I've encouraged my people to come up with ideas, and we're going to try it. I am not, and I will say this, I am not terrified to make a decision and it not work. Because the only way you can improve what you have is try something, think through it as competently as you can, challenge ideas in the room, and try to make it work. If not, we are doomed to continue to do what we're doing. And if I say that what I'm doing is not working, as far as I'm concerned, that's negligent leadership. Sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you, sir. Chief Ford, I have two follow-up questions. You mentioned before that you upgraded your facilities, particularly like neutral restrooms within the stations. What was the process that went into that?
it was very simple, sir. And the neutral restrooms we made are the public-facing restrooms. We put a neutral gender sign on it, and we basically put locks on the door, make sure that, I mean, it was very simple. It was something we should have thought of a long time ago. We never did that. We had male and female restrooms. Why? Yeah, it didn't make any sense. So, I mean, it was generally as simple as that many times. And then we put it out to advertise our members. And that was I will tell you, that was very useful to us. And I'll tell you why, because it sent a message to our members that we take this very seriously. We take the respect of our LGBTQ community very seriously, our women very seriously. So it sent a message.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My second question, again, based on my experience, the fire service is one that for years was dominated as a white male
yes, sir.
culture.
Yes, sir.
It has rapidly changed. The first African Americans were hired in the 60s. The first females were hired in the late 70s. What is the biggest challenge to the constant change, to change the culture? This fire department is not your granddad's fire department. It's not your dad's fire department. It's not your uncle's fire department. What is the greatest challenge, and what are you doing to stay ahead of the curve?
Okay, Commissioner, with the respect, I'm going to correct one thing you said.
Yes, sir.
I have Chief Clark on my right shoulder, and he is the keeper of all information historically. Chief Clark, is it 56? Okay, our first one was 1956, and I'm a PhD.
Yes, sir.
My dissertation was written on perceived occupational opportunities for African Americans in the fire service.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that I learned when I was writing it, there are a couple dynamics we have to really focus, we have to deal with in certain ways. Yes, there's racial traditions in the organizations, the fire service, yes. But there's also other challenges that we have of a mindset. In my dissertation, one of the things, even though you're not supposed to use metaphors, I use one, they let me go with it. I basically said that the fire service did not have a Joshua generation. The Moses generation came through in the 50s and 60s. They had so many challenges that when their kids were coming up, unlike our Caucasian brothers and sisters, but particular brothers at that time, they were telling their kids, go in the fire service. The African-American male was saying, I went through too much hell. You don't go. You go to college. So we missed out on that Joshua generation. The challenge is, it didn't end completely. That concept didn't end completely, where people don't see the fire service from non-traditional background individuals do not see the fire service in the same way that our Caucasian counterparts that grew up in it, grew up in the tradition of the fire service. They're volunteers in the community, in the county, in the counties, not just here, throughout the country, right? That has been a hurdle to overcome, the fact of even when you talk to kids, it's hard to explain to them how amazing this career is, how much you can make a difference to kids' lives. I mean, young people's and old people, for that matter, lives every day. And they pay you for it. You help people. And I say it just like that. I said, they're going to help you. You're going to help people. Something you're supposed to do anyway. And somebody's going to pay you for it. I mean, how can you beat that occupation? So it's a process of teaching people that, and you hear young people now will say, I'm not going in the fire. My explanation to you is we train you. And the truth of the matter is, the fact of the matter rather, the fire service isn't the most dangerous occupation. Garbage man, and statistically, is more dangerous than working in the fire service. I'm not saying it's not dangerous. The fire service is very dangerous. You can look and see what's happened to my organization recently. But the fire service is a viable, compassionate business organization. That's our hurdle, trying to get that word out to let people know that from non-traditional backgrounds, women, LGBT, Latino, Asian, African Americans, that this job is for you. And actually, your community needs to see you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I want to go to the commissioners who are on the phone. Commissioner Lecce and Commissioner Johnson in that order. Any questions for Chief Ford? Can you?
Commissioner Johnson.
All right. Commissioner Lecce, I wanted to make sure I heard you. Did you respond?
Yes, good evening, Chair Yuri. I don't have any other further questions. Thank you so much for all that you have spoken to us so far.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, good evening, Chair. Can you all hear me okay?
We can.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. I wanted to ask 3 questions. The first one deals with the rank list that Chief mentioned, and this was the. I want to understand, what is the rule of 1? What is that? How does that go on?
Yes, sir. The rule of 1 is, did he want to ask all the questions?
Commissioner Johnson, you want to ask all 3 questions and have the chief respond?
Yes, sir. I can do that. But I'll be uncomfortable. And the second question would be regarding the rank list. Have you found any correlations between the ranking and how candidates rank and stack demographically? So that would be the second question. And then the third question deals with, utilizing community members to interview candidates for the job. How has this impacted the diversity of your new hires?
All right.
All right. Commissioner Johnson, could you repeat the second question? I'm sorry.
Sure. So the second question, again, deals with your rank list. I wanted to know if you found any correlations between the ranking of candidates and how they rank and stack demographically.
Okay. Yeah. So let me explain the rule of 1. The rule of 1 is after you go through whatever the assessment process is. In our case, 8 years ago, it was only a written exam. When you took the written exam, however after the test, after the scoring, your seniority points were added or whatever was associated with it. If you scored 99, next person scored 98, next person scored 97, that was the process of promotions. 98, 99, 98, 97. That is the rule of 1. Approximately 6 years ago, we added an in-basket a portion to this exam, an in-basket / scenario to this component. And the reason why we added that is because there are people who function well on written exams. But there are people that if you talk to them about their job, they will explain to you everything you need to know about their job, whereas if you give them a written exam, they may fail out on that. So we added that component to offset how individuals may perform in a competence standpoint in a testing environment. So that did shift somewhat how that promotional process works. And quite frankly, what I just said is best practices in the country amongst fire services. I'm going to answer the second question last, if that's okay, sir. As far as utilizing citizens for hiring, I really don't know how it was exactly before I got here. What I do know is when I got here, I had a list already made. And it was a list that was around 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old. And I made everybody on the list re-interview with citizens. And I restructured the list. And I had some people very angry with me for doing that because it flipped the list. And because it was very important to me, a couple of things. It was very important to me that community people were involved. This is a practice I started when I was in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's a practice I've maintained since I've gotten here. It is my belief that what it has done, I'll tell you, the statement I made about saying that we hire firefighters, we hire good people, we don't hire firefighters, that's what I say I greet the community people that are interviewing every morning. when they're having their continental breakfast before they do the interviews. And I tell them it's inevitable people are going to ask me this, so I'm going to get ahead and proactively answer it. So if you ask me, Chief, we don't know what you're looking for in firefighters, I tell them I'm not looking for firefighters. I'm looking for good people. So the person I want you to hire is the person that you want to come to your house and take care of your loved one at 2 o'clock in the morning with a stumped toe, and they've been running bad calls all day and all night, and how they respect you in that environment. I said, if you can get me that person, because I can't teach that. I said, the mom and them send them to us like that.
Amen.
I said, I can't teach that. But if you can put me in a position where I can get that person, I said, Chief Shiloh and her team, and under Chief Surveiller, we can get it done. And it has what it's proven to me, it's done a couple of things. The person that lives on a certain block, when a kid walks in and he doesn't make his subject and verb agree exactly, but he does answer the question. Whereas I'm sitting there with a PhD and I'm a fire chief. If I sat on that interview board, I'll be judgmental of him. Whereas, quite frankly, Big Mama down the street will say, you know, he's a good kid, answered the question well, he's like the kid living next door. And she'd be more understanding in the process, and that's what we've observed. So the last question is dealing with have we noticed the correlation of the ranked list in respects to, and I'm thinking that he's speaking competency and effectiveness. I think one of the most. I'm sorry.
The question really is about demographics.
Oh.
One of the things I'm wondering, and I don't know, and I don't want to bias your response, but I'm trying to understand. Part of what you laid out was there was a challenge with recruiting women, and there were some other challenges demographically, or key demographics for your staff. And I wanted to understand if you thought that the community interview process resulted in improved diversity numbers.
Okay.
As well as if you thought that there was potentially a negative impact on the ranking process you currently use in relationship to demographics.
Commissioner Johnson, that's two different components, because the ranking list is for people who want to be promoted. The community interviews, the citizens doing the interviews are people who are trying to come in the organization. But I'm going to address both of them because I think I know what you're asking about. I have noticed personally that we have been more successful with diversity throughout the organization. The irony is, without people asking people, are you from Baltimore, we've also been more effective with hiring citizens from Baltimore. We've also been more effective with hiring people that have military background. I can't explain to you why, because that's not one of the questions. None of that is something that's asked. All right? So we've been reasonably successful with that on the hiring end with these community people. I cannot say enough good stuff about people who, and you don't have to, so shameless plug, if you're interested, please let us know. We'll put you on the list and we'll train you. You don't have to come every day for the interview process. You can come when you're available. We'll train you. Okay. Moving on to the ranked list. I think there's been, we are doing extremely well in comparison. What I mean is historical comparison and in comparison of other fire departments. In fact, we're doing major. In fact, Captain Yancey, one of the things with her involvement with women in the fire service, she keeps up with the statistics of women in the fire service nationally. The number's 4%. What number are we at now? What is it? 18%. So I was getting ready to say 16. I didn't want to cheat myself. That's why I wanted to ask. So we're doing very well with that. The other thing we're doing very well with now is diverse groups challenging the promotional exam. Now, let me tell you, that's not historically what it normally happens. That's big for us. The fact that more women, more minorities sign to challenge and be promoted, because that's a big step. Women in the fire service who already feel like they're marginalized, already feel like they may be disrespected in certain environments, they're not going to want to step out there and be in charge of, for lack of a better word, something they think is foolishness. or something they feel like they're going to be mistreated if they take the promotion. So we're having more women actually challenging the exam, being promoted, more minorities challenging the exam, being promoted. And it's been several different components. That's happened as a result of us changing the process probably 6 years ago, adding the oral component to the exam. The written is already there. The other thing is we have people like Chief Shiloh, people like Captain Yancey. Not only are there and Chief McConnell, I can name many other, not only there is a visual perspective of who they can be and understanding how well these women are working and doing, and so, if you see it, you can be it. So they're seeing that, they're challenging the exam, and not only that, organizations like Vulcan Blazers, Fire EMS Committee, Phoenix, they're sitting down and studying with people. So they're helping mentor them. I think that's where we start turning the corner, and we have started turning it. I hope I answered your question, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Chief Ford, thank you for your presentation. I have just a few questions, and I want to be mindful of the time that we are going to adjourn at 8, so some of this may be kind of IOU for follow-up.
Okay.
There were a couple of things throughout the report, and I just kind of made some mental notes. We've talked about the challenges of staffing shortages and equity in terms of the deployment of resources, shift coverage, those kinds of issues. What's the current delta between the current staffing and what full complement would be in the fire service?
Full complement per shift is around 300 people per shift. That means people actually coming into work. Normally, we're able to meet full complement. The challenges we have is when we hit holidays and hit weekends, sometimes we're not able to do it. At that time, we don't shut down fire stations or anything like that. What we end up doing is looking at double companies, and we strategically disband units that won't affect our response time.
So that's a demonstration of how you manage resources. Mm-hmm. Do you have all of the fire service employees that you currently need to provide whatever's in your budget profile?
The short answer is no.
All right, so what's the shortage there?
We are at 8% vacancy, 8, or just over 8% vacancy. The dynamic with that is, I say that, but in case, I think the commissioner works for Baltimore County. Am I right? Yes. They have basically the same vacancy, but they don't have the same challenges with staffing we have. We have several obstacles. Part of our obstacles are written in the MOU. So we have to work through that. Our sweet spot on vacancy, I'd argue, is somewhere around 3%. And that's incredible of a 1,800 or 1,500 member organization. And we were able to stay 2 to 3% for about 4 years. And COVID hit. Okay.
Is the MOU current? Are you all negotiating it? Is it current?
It's current.
It's current.
Yes.
The other point is, in the review of your numbers, we know we have the data inside the Office of Equity and Civil Rights as to CRC complaints.
Yes.
But you gave us some data on internal EEO complaints. Can you provide, I don't need the numbers tonight, but can you provide us a 3-year look back on what those internal complaints would be and what, just generally by category, what the complaints were around?
Yes.
We want to be able to kind of look at that data.
Yes.
The question I have in terms of third parties, you have third party training and test development, third parties who provide other services. Who evaluates those third party processes and resources for compliance with relevant civil rights law?
We do it internally. All their processes, and when I mean internally, between DHR and the fire department, all those processes are evaluated, and the statistics are part of what we have to evaluate as well. Not only do we evaluate the impact, the perspective of impact on diversity, but we also evaluate the effectiveness, meaning that when we do line people up and we hire them, are they able to reasonably in large enough numbers complete recruit school? Because if we're not able to do that, then the whole process has a challenge in it somewhere. But I think we're doing pretty well with that.
And my last question, you mentioned the Facets report. We have, I think you have on your site,
Yes.
a Facets report that was completed in 2021. We know we were in the throes of a pandemic then. It sounds like there's another Facets study going on right now. And there's some key findings that are in the first study that I found particularly interesting. I won't highlight them, but there's some references to resource challenges. Current staffing levels are quite complicated. This is from the executive summary. Leads to some operational inefficiencies. And you mentioned in your comments the black butterfly and the white L, which we all know in the discussion around Baltimore City is really kind of the image of inequity that has continued to plague us over time. Can you just give me your sense? What is your equity assessment of where your organization is and what's most needed to make sure that we address what you referenced as the black butterfly?
I'm going to respectfully say that we don't have a challenge there, and in a sense that we are responding to the calls irrespective of that issue. Our members, and they do an outstanding job. Now you ask me, okay, Chief, how do you know that? We base that on complaints, both internal and external, in the organization, responses. We even have a quality assurance that evaluates the calls afterwards to see how it played out. So we're doing pretty well with that. Now, I say that, but what I'm saying is we treat the whole system fairly. We go at the whole system fairly. But when we have declines in the system, it declines the systemically. That's our challenge. Now, if it's inequity, it's inequity for the whole system. I shouldn't say it's inequity it's equity for the whole system. Everybody's treated equally, but it's a drawback of resources for the entire system.
Well, I'll follow up on that at another time. We know that even in the terminology, simply because there's equal distribution does not mean there's equal effect, positively or negatively. And that is a concern, and it's not to put pressure on you or the department in terms of the utilization of resources. It's really to try to understand where do we need to do a better job of advocating for resources to address wherever some of the equity gaps are within the providing of services. Not that you are not doing what we would expect of you in leading a department with the resources that are allocated. If there's a need for more to do better, then we need to understand that when it comes to making sure that we're doing right by all of the people of Baltimore City.
Understood.
With that, you have the floor for any closing comments. Commissioners, you'll be recognized for 1 minute for your closing thoughts, and then I'll give some closing instructions and we'll be adjourned.
Because you all tolerated me so much in my process, I cannot express to you how proud I am of the organization I'm a part of. We do good work, but I will readily admit that even on a winning team, and I feel like I have one, there's always improvement. And one of the things we have to make sure we do is get out of our own skin and make sure we see what else is going on throughout the world so we can figure out how to better provide services at home. So that's our goal, to continuously try to improve. What you're saying, I don't disagree with, sir. And that's something we need to continuously analyze and see where we are systemically through the system. But I am very proud of what the people I work alongside of throughout this entire organization, and they understand our commitment to our compassionate business. And I'm thankful to stand here before you and have the opportunity to talk about us.
Well, thank you for that. I want to do it slightly different. I want to go to the phones first, since they've been waiting for those of us in the room to speak first. Commissioner Lecce, any closing thoughts?
Thank you, Chair Uri. Thank you very much, Chief, for this presentation. Very informative. You see that you all are working very hard. So we will make sure that, we try to support you, as you have mentioned earlier. And thank you so much again for meeting with us.
Commissioner Johnson?
This has been quite informative. Thank you all for your time. I do have some additional questions. I'll send this follow-up part of the committee, but thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Foster.
Thank you, everyone. Just want to acknowledge Chief Clark, Chief Savela, and Cap Yancey. I was with you all at the dedication of the First Responder Memorial at King Memorial Park last week. And Chief, I want to commend you. When you gave your closing statements, you said the organization that I'm not a part of, not the organization that I lead, but of course we know that you are the leader. I think that speaks to you as a leader in your leadership style, and I just want to commend you for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Evangelista.
Sure. I just want to thank you, Chief, for all that you do for the citizens of Baltimore. We're grateful of your leadership.
Commissioner Finnegan Carr.
Thank you. As my fellow commissioners have said, you said that Baltimore City Fire Department hires good people and trains them to be firefighters and EMTs, and I would like to say that Baltimore City hired a good person in hiring you, and we are very proud of who you are and how you have led this agency, so thank you.
Director Moore, anything before I give my hoorah and out the door?
I just want to say thank you for trusting the Office of Equity and Civil Rights to lead and support this investigative hearing. We have learned a lot. The hour is a little bit later, and I just wanted to share, I've been looking at my phone on occasion, and a dear friend just asked me, why is downtown lit blue? And apparently a lot of the buildings downtown are lit blue in honor of the loss that the fire department and really all of Baltimore suffered this week. And I think it's a strong testament of how Baltimore is with you. Baltimore appreciates you, and Baltimore will stick with you through thick and thin. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Ford, we've been kind of hanging out on and off for almost a decade now, and I think I put you in Omaha because I know the demographics of Omaha are probably a little more familiar to me than Lincoln. But certainly in your time here in our conversations about everything from recruitment to mission effectiveness, those conversations are ongoing. And so there's no question in my mind as the chair of this commission, along with my colleagues, of your commitment to the fire service. You mentioned, I think everybody's friend and mentor when it comes to all things fire service, Chief Roman Clark, as the historian and noting the hiring of the first African-American firefighter in 1956. Those of you who may not know, I actually served the congregation where the first black fire commissioner was appointed in 1968, and that was the late Reverend Dr. Marion Bascom. And so internally, my commitment is really kind of a part of my assignment in walking in footsteps that are the size of craters when it comes to Dr. Bascom's work, but also the awareness that very often when we think about public safety, we rarely think about the fire service. We rarely think about the fire department. Our minds immediately go to what's happening with the police department and crime. We know that we've been conditioned to think a certain way. But even when there's a response to a police emergency, very often there is someone from the fire service right there on the scene responding, sometimes at the same time, sometimes you may get there a little earlier depending on what's going on. And I think it is time to certainly acknowledge and applaud the work that you do under less than perfect circumstances. And our questioning and our conversation tonight is not to critique, but really to better understand. How do we get to the place of making sure that the commitment we all bring to serving the residents of Baltimore City is consistent across the board? It should not fall solely to your shoulders. This commission, Director Moore, the Office of Equity and Civil Rights, is committed to making sure that it does not fall solely to your shoulders. This is a work that we're going to do together. This is but the first step. There is some follow-up that we will do, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Officially, for the record will be held open on this hearing until Monday, Monday, November the 7th at close of business. You will be able to send any public comment, any follow-up questions, commissioners. If you will send them to my attention, I will forward them to Director Moore for forwarding to the chief and his staff. And the email address for public comment in writing is Nathaniel.Cohen, Nathaniel.Cohen at baltimorecity.gov. Certainly, we are good on time. Let me also note that there are some submissions that were presented tonight. We will include them in the record. Kudos to Director Moore, all of the staff of the Office of Equity and Civil Rights for all of the activities and the events that continue during this Civil Rights Week 2022. Please check out all of them, and certainly I'm grateful to my colleagues for this work. Onward and upward we go. Thank you for your time. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, this hearing stands adjourned.
Thank you all so much.